Of academia, together with my colleague Flavia Fossati, I've organized this workshop. My name is Philipp Trein. I'm a research assistant and PhD student here at the Institute. Flavia is a postdoc at the EDAP here in Lausanne. We invited 5 guests to come and to talk about their experience as PhD students and the way how they transferred into the non-academic sphere afterwards. We have Gfrörer from the University of Zürich, Schneider from the Federal Office for Police, Wally Achtermann from the Federal Office of Public Health in Switzerland, Marie-Christine Fontana from the company econcept, which does research in the private area, and we have Jonathan von Eerd from SwissRe. These are candidates who took a PhD in political science or in related disciplines and went on to a career path outside academia, or who are on their way to take the degree. Now, Gfrörer will present for about 20 minutes from his own experience as a PhD student and at the same time as an advisor to PhD graduates in the University of Zurich. And after that, the other participants will tell you how they developed their career path. After that, there will be time for questions and answers. So thanks again, everybody, for coming, and we're looking forward to a good session. Roger, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Philipp. Hello, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here. First of all, I'm not a PhD student, or I did not my PhD in political science, and you will see that I did it somewhere else. But I was invited because I am the head of the career service of the University of Zurich, and we have a lot of PhD students that come to us and ask how they can move to the non-academic labor market. And therefore, I guess that I can give you some insights and some ideas how that move can be successfully happen. So I named my presentation Career Resources of a PhD for a Self-Directed Career Management. We work with the career resource model, and then we show you how PhD students gain these career resources that make them able to move and to transit into the non-academic labor market. Philipp and Flavia gave me the order to prepare a speech about what I'm doing now. I'm working in the so-called third space. Who knows already the term of third space? No one? Okay, third space is the area in the university that is not research and teaching and that is not administration. We are in the middle between, and we try to make the system running because the professors are more and more focusing on their research, and the administration is unfortunately focusing more and more on the administration. And so we are in the middle, and we try to make the system running. We are translating the results of the research and of the teaching into other contexts. You probably know graduate schools. Graduate schools are managed by program manager, and those program managers usually are not professors, but they are people with an academic background that know how the system is running, and they make the system running. So this is what I'm doing, and this is what they ask me to present you. Then second, they ask me to present my way from a PhD into the non-academic, let's say non-research labor market. And the third task they gave me is to present some models and some frameworks that probably could help you also in your way into the outside of the academic labor market. So what is my situation now? I'm head at the career service of the University of Zurich. I'm working there for 80%. who has heard about the career service? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So a lot of you will now know that such a department exists at the university. The career service is preparing the graduates and undergraduates and PhD students for their way into the labor market. So I will not show you what our program is and what our services are, because you will find, I'm quite sure that you will find a career service at your own university and you will find out what they're doing. But what I want to tell you is that this work has some big points that make my work a good one. Me and my team, it's a little bit small, me and my team, we built up the department from scratch. I was founder of the career service at the University of Zürich, and we established a non-research oriented service department that is really important in a research university. So at the first years, it was a little bit difficult to explain why such a department should exist at the university, because everybody was telling us we do not need a career service because our students will find a job anyway. Look at the unemployment statistics and you will find out that after 5 years we have no unemployed students anymore. I answered, we do not know what they're doing until they get a job, because at the first year the statistics are not that good, and we do not know whether they work in the right place. So I think it's a part of the responsibility of the university to take care about their graduates and to take care about the path of them. I developed, this is really, it was really astonishing, I developed my understanding of higher education. I did not understand until I finished my PhD what the higher education is doing for the society, what its role is. And I also developed a way how to align my activities according to this understanding. I co-founded a network, a career service network for the whole Switzerland, which now the University of Lausanne is also part of the network. And we try to strengthen the career service functions in the higher education system in Switzerland. I try to open up new fields. I established, for example, support for entrepreneurship activities. I tried to financing employability courses. That's not that easy as it seems at the university. And I tried to play an active part in the campus development. You see that there is a lot of activities which are, in my understanding, trying to support the university to provide a complete service. And I create a work environment, last but not least, for my employees. We are all highly motivated, and we have fun working at the career service. And I am, as a head, I am responsible for those employees. We are now 11 persons working for the career service, and it's we try to sharpening the image of the University of Zurich as a responsible university which take care of their students. What I'm doing beside, I'm also a lecturer at other higher education institutions. My topics are human resource management and HR controlling, and this is really important for me to understand how the other players in this higher education system are working, because they are competitors to our graduates, and they will compete. Although our professors do not understand, but they do compete to our graduates of the university, and now I understand better how this works, and I understand better the strengths and the weaknesses of our graduates compared to the graduates of almost higher education, almost of universities of applied science. This is beside my job as a head of the career service, and this is important for me to tell you, because sometimes it's people are looking for a 100% job, and they do not consider that probably an 80% job offers more possibilities. And this is something that I learned during my, I do not call it career, but during my path. What was crucial for my career? First of all, it was happenstance. I had so many decisions that were relying on happenstance. They were not planned. All the blue decisions were done by happenstance. At the end of my PhD, I tried to enter companies, I tried to enter the HR departments. I sent my applications, and they came back as fast as a return of Stan Wawrinka. I just sent it out, and they were already back. I asked myself, why didn't I get a chance to present myself then? And this was before my experience as a career service responsible. And I found out for myself that they do not understand what I have to offer them. Although I was a senior assistant at the human resource management chair, they did not understand why should I work for an HR department. So I went to the HR department of the university, and I asked them, do you have a possibility for me to work at your HR department? And they said, we have just some administrative positions open. I said, okay, I will do it. And I did some copies, and I just, it was really basic works. And they said, you with a PhD, why are you working here at the department doing such jobs? I said, okay, I want to learn that. I want to see that, what you're doing. And I want to have it in my CV. I want that I can write down HR department of the University of Zürich. During this work, the boss of the HR department came to me and told me, did you hear about that they will create a new department called career service? I said, no, I did not know. That would be something for you. Apply. The position was never officially published. If I would not have done this work, if I would not have done copies for contracts, I would never have heard about the career service, and I would not have had a chance to apply for this position. So finally I applied, and I'm really happy that they decided to take me into responsibility to build up this department, but it is just happenstance. It was good luck. I was applying hard. I really fighted for the job, but it was really just happenstance. I'm now not working in an HR department as I originally planned. I think I'm doing something much better now. And every situation here in blue is everything is happenstance. I did not plan these steps. And if you ask yourself, how many steps, how many decisions did you really plan in a long term? And say, okay, I now know, excuse me, that I want to become in 5 years this, and who of you? Probably, okay, if you do a PhD and finish a PhD, you plan that, but afterwards you will find out that some of the decisions are not planned. This happenstance is not an invention by me, it's a concept from a psychology professor of the Stanford. His name is Grumboldt. And you can read here the happenstance learning theory that says that unexpected circumstances and coincidences affect the career, that career development cannot be fully planned, and then it's possible to create this happenstance. And you find out in the next steps how you can plan the happenstance. You can create a strategy by following these 4 points that you ask yourself what kind of happenstance do you want that happen to you, that you increase the probability by doing some activities, because these steps are really easy, but then you have to do something. So you ask yourself, how would your life change if you do something, and how would your life change if you won't do anything? So you probably will do then afterwards. And the next 3 steps will construct those unexpected opportunities, that you have to be active. You're here. You are part of a network. You can communicate to people. That you be open for new opportunities. And that you plan follow actions. That means that if you are making contact to a person, that you ask them 2 weeks or 2 months later again, do you have something for me? Do you have an idea for me? Have you heard anything for a position? Because people will forget you. they will not think, they will not remember you, say, okay, he was a good guy or she was a good girl, and I would offer her the job. So always keep yourself into the memory of the person you know. These are the relevant happenstances for the career that also find out by research. You will get this, how?
You're around.
Oh, you're around. Okay, you find these points, and you will probably find out that some of these happenstances already happened to you. What was the next important thing for my career? It was the definition or my understanding of career. You can see that there are two concepts. This is so-called objective career. This is a career where hierarchical positions and the amount of money you earn and the responsibility you have for people are measured and used for a career success. The higher the office, the bigger the car that the company is paying you, the better the career success. But there is also a second career model. It's a so-called subjective career, but that says that everybody has a career and that the career is the sum of any experience you're doing into your, you can call it into your business life or also in your whole life. And I have to learn that my career model, my career goal, is one of the subjective ones. I studied business administration. Many of my colleagues went into highly paid positions into banking, consulting. And if I compare to them, I said, okay, I did not earn a lot of money, but I had other goals, I had other benefits from my career. And now, since I know that there are two concepts, I see, okay, I followed another career model. And for me, this was crucial because, first of all, I'm not successful because I do not earn that much money that all my colleagues earn. So for me, this was also an essential understanding. It was also important for me that there are different models of the life planning or of the, and you see that there are some extreme life plans, and I was comparing always to the highest one because my role models, they just worked. They made an apprenticeship, or they did not study, they made an apprenticeship and then they worked for the same company 30, 40 years, and then they get retired. And my model was the third. I did some things, and I had no orientation until I know that, okay, that is okay, that your career plan does not have this long-term perspective that you just work for the same company. And for me, it's a really important picture here that there are different ideas of how life could be managed or run. Then the next important thing was that I understand now that there are different modes of working. You can get an employment, you can use your expertise, and this is something that I really want to tell all the PhD students, because you own a special expertise into your specific topic, and you could use this expertise. I use my expertise from my PhD now in these teaching assignments I have in other higher education institutions. You can also use it for other things, like probably a project member, or probably someone who does reports, yeah. And the third one is you can get also self-employed. I did not consider that. I always thought, okay, I need an assignment 100% into a company, and now I know that you can also have a portfolio of different activities that also allow you to have a real interesting life. I think it's more interesting if you have some different activities than just one job. Then number 3 that was crucial was that I was not aware that I earn or gain career resources during my PhD. But I did on my PhD. I learned to think more analytically. I learned to defend my position, and I gained specific knowledge, communication skills, and self-confidence. That was really important for me. That gave me the power to stand in front of people and to defend my position. Probably not in English, but... And also in the non-regularly, beside the PhD, I gained career resources. I pick one is I started in the HR administration. I became co-editor for a book for a team that I had no idea what that was. I co-edited a book about management consulting, and I was definitely sure that I will never work for management consulting, and it was really interesting, and this helps me now in my work because I now know what they're doing in a management consulting process. So here in the next 3 slides, you find some ideas what these career resources could be, and they are mostly based on the VTE model from the UK, and you will find out, you have the printouts, and you fill out what those career resources could be in your specific case. You have specific academic resources which rely specifically on your PhD and on your field of studies. You have general resources which rely probably on your further activities you've done. And you have personal resources like network, like self-confidence, like conditional, like motivation or something like that, like values. And all those resources allow you to become successful into the labor market, into the job. But you have to know that you own that. So if I make a look back, what would I change? I would gain earlier knowledge about the labor market, and specifically about the hidden labor market. The problem is that 50 to 70% of all positions are not published. So how will you find out that there is an open position? I would gain knowledge about the hidden labor market in terms of my research career. I would earlier decide whether I should enter the academic career path or the non-academic career path. In my case, my boss, I had a boss, he was not a lot around and had a lot of freedom, but I needed a long time to finish my PhD. And after I finished my PhD, he came to me and said, Roger, no, Mr. Gfrörer, because we were not by you. Mr. Gfrörer, would you now like to enter the academic career path? And I said, no, I'm 36. What do you want me to enter the career path for academia? So, okay, so you don't, huh? So, yes. But if I had made my decision clearly and explicitly after 2 years, and I think in my case it was clear after 1 year that I would never do an academic career, I would have had the possibility to make better preparation for entering the non-academic labor market. In my case now I finished my PhD and then I was interested into the labor market. It was much too late. I would also try to find out about this third space. This is the second point. Because as a PhD student, you often have the problem that you are overqualified but underexperienced. So outside the university, no one understands what your capabilities are. But inside the university, as I tried to explain, you have a lot of positions that really need your academic expertise, but not for research or teaching, but for the management of all those processes. So I would try to find out what kind of positions could that be that understand your qualifications. And for the non-academic career, I would try to have the look out of the ivory tower. I don't know if it's the right term in English. Get out of your office. Go and talk to people in companies. Go and talk to people who have done the same as you are doing, but now are working somewhere else. Use all the networks that the universities are offering. In my case, I really closed myself into the office, and it was really nice there. It was cozy, but I missed so many opportunities because I just was not aware that I could do something to get a better knowledge about the labor market. Next one is seek and create exposure. Even if it feels uncomfortable, I really hated to present my work, and I did not use my research status to get outside and to create new contacts. I wrote my PhD thesis about the team management in the emergency room. How many hospitals are in Switzerland? How many did I visit? I visited 2. I missed so many opportunities to get in contact with people that work in these hospitals, that could become a contact, that could become a part of my network, that I could ask after finishing my PhD, do you have something for me? I just wrote my PhD thesis in my office, and I missed this opportunity. Then, because I'm a little bit in a hurry, you have to, I would try to learn the techniques that bring the power you gain during your PhD to the ground. Know what your career resources are. This is the model I used in the section before. Be aware that communication is one of the most important skills you own, or you have to own, to bring your brain work you are doing as a PhD to the people that are interested or could be interested in what you are thinking. So you learn to communicate, learn to use different media types, learn to make people listen to you. And everything is networking, so create, use, and develop your network. Create a profile on those professional networks like LinkedIn, or in the German part is Xing. Start using your network, start creating all the contacts by establishing your network. You will do it anyway, but it needs some time. So start earlier, better earlier than later, using a network. And then what I would do at last is I would use the support structure of my university. I did not know that we had a support structure for conferences, peer mentoring, and workshops. I did not know. I was not interested in. I did not find the information did not come easy to me. But most of the universities are offering a real brilliant structure, a support structure for PhD students. Find out what your university is offering. Go there, get in contact with the people working there, and use it, because they have. I'm quite sure that they will support you by easier getting your way, getting your way outside of the academia into the labor market. So this is, I think, one of the most important, I think this is the most important slide I have to you. Use the help that your university is offering to you. So thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Roger, for this encompassing and interesting overview concerning career development after the PhD. We will now turn to our other guests, and each of them will have 10 minutes to introduce themselves and say what they do and how they get where they are now after their PhD or last university degree. So we begin with you, Christian.
So, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I didn't prepare any presentation. I just planned to go through the 5 questions we got from the organizers of the panel. I don't know, have they been communicated or not? No. So, okay, the 5 questions are what I'm doing now, how my regular, normal workday looks like, which responsibility I do have, how I did get where I am now, and what was crucial for my career. So actually, I found all the 5 questions quite difficult, especially probably the first one, what I'm doing, is not so easy to say. Well, I'm working for the Federal Office of Police as a strategic analyst. What we do or what we are basically a small research department within a police organization, helping decision makers at our level, at the federal level, let's say the director of the Federal Office of Police, but also the commanders of the cantonal polices, sometimes the government or other government offices, helping them to better understand what's going on, in our case, on organized crime in Switzerland. So we do basically assessments of the organized crime situation in Switzerland. Threat assessments are they called. I'm not so sure if this is the correct term, but that's what's in our job description. Basically analyze all available sources and write threat assessments according to the questions we get. That was what I was told when I got there. In reality, it's a little bit different. First of all, we rarely do get the right questions at the right time. So, and second, we don't really have the right data. That means in the end, we are working a lot of ad hoc on ad hoc questions, doing ad hoc assessments of the things that are around. Most of the time, this is public information, but also, of course, there's information that comes from closed sources. And the challenge there is to actually gather the information at the right time, so to be prepared for any question that could come up within your field of expertise. My expertise is in international and Swiss drug markets, illegal drug markets. As you can imagine, it's not so easy to do drug market analysis because most of the things that are happening are clandestine and quite difficult to find out or to even find indicators, measurements, or anything. So in the end, what I'm doing is very simple statistical descriptive analysis of what is around. These are usually police data, seizures, arrests, things like that. And based on that, try to make assessments on how drug markets in Switzerland look like. The interesting thing is that you can't do that alone. With the data available, with the information available, it's always an interpretation. And the interpretation you don't do on your own. You always go out, you talk to other people, you talk to police officers on the ground, to people who are doing investigations. You talk to people from the public health sector, very much, quite often, even more than to police, than to actually police actors. You have to talk to representatives of international organizations who have the international perspective on how drug markets work, and so on and so on. So coming from a social scientist perspective, which has been preoccupied with data, I'm actually now in a much more softer environment where interpretation is much more important in the end. So what am I doing? I'm trying to get as many different perspectives on an issue that is difficult to understand, and to assess based on these different perspectives to make my best assessment I can about what drug markets look like in Switzerland in a very general way. So how does a workday like mine look like? As you probably can imagine, I probably spend 50% of my time actually going through data, going through reports, trying to find out what are issues that could be interesting, so to be a little bit ahead of the questions that are coming from the parliament, that are coming from the media, that might be coming from the police on the ground. I prepare reports, but I'd say I spend 50% of my time or more talking to people, going to conferences, again, trying to get the perspective of other people on the issues that I have, challenge my own hypothesis or thesis about how the market looks like, how drug crime could look like, and in this way building a better understanding of what I'm actually supposed to assess. Responsibilities, I'm basically alone. That's a very good thing. I have my own project, a running project, which is kind of an operative project. I have my field of expertise, and within this field, I basically decide on my own what I do, how I do it, and what I don't do in the end. Again, this is good on the one hand, but also on the other hand, if you're working alone, it doesn't always help for the rest of your career. I guess I get to that later on. But if you're an expert or having your field of expertise, you're always at the risk to becoming a little bit kind of a nerd. That probably happens to me. So after a few years, you know much more than everybody else, and actually nobody needs your expertise anymore in that depth. Most people are interested in very basic assessments on very basic questions. So the question again here is, how can you stay ahead or on top of the issues in a way that doesn't make you a nerd? How I did get where I am now, I guess that was happenstance probably twice or 3 times in a row for this position. First of all, I was doing research on international drug policy, so I've basically talked to most of the people whom I'm working with now at the federal level and at the international level in one way or the other before during my research. I was doing exclusively qualitative research, so interviews, semi-structured interviews, and through these interviews I basically met everybody who's playing a role, nearly everybody who's playing a role in my daily work now already before. That was very good, but that didn't give me a position in the Federal Office of Police or anywhere else. The other thing was that the day after I handed in my PhD, I got to my office. I thought, well, what do I do now? I went on a job search site, and I've seen that one of the positions, or the position of one of my contacts was actually advertised there, and that the deadline for applications was on the next day. So I had to decide very quickly. I got through my memories, thought, well, actually his position was kind of interesting. I applied, and here I am now. So that was really luck in 2 ways, I guess, because I've already knew the field very good, but also that this position was free at the moment when I had time enough to prepare for something else. Well, what was crucial for my career, I think in the end, 2 things have been very important for me. I've already been open to different career paths. I've never excluded staying in academia, but I've never excluded to do something else. Had a kind of a pragmatic approach to my career. I liked what I did during my PhD, but I had also the impression that I could do or could use my resources I had in other fields. So in the end, the decision was really a decision that came at the moment when this position was open. The second point, I guess, for me was very important that I was already integrated up to a certain part into the network that I'm now working in. Again, this was luck, but I guess I would not have applied to the position I am in now if I didn't know the person who had this position before, and I've seen that what he's doing is actually kind of interesting, that he had the discretion or freedom in his work that I would wish for in a position. I guess if I've seen a position like that just advertised, I've never actually applied to it. So networking also during and through your research seems to be a very crucial point for me. Well, that's basically it. We've got a Q&A session after that, so I'll be around and open for your questions. Thanks.
Yes, exactly. So thank you very much, Christian. And I would like to hand over directly to Wally Achtermann from the BAG.
Thank you, and as well, thank you for the invitation. And my name is Wally Achtermann, and as you already mentioned, I'm working for the Federal Office of Public Health. Just a small word to the key issue, networking. Why I am here, I know Philipp Trein because I'm doing my PhD here at the University of Lausanne on coordination capabilities of multi-level systems. I know Christian Schneider because we had to do some project on public health and the federal police concerning drugs. And now I know Marie-Christine because she is researching on monitoring systems and I'm into monitoring, so we will probably keep in contact. So you see just a small wording here, networking is all and everything. But now let's start from the very beginning. I'm married with the Federal Office of Public Health for almost 25 years, though with interruptions. I applied for the Federal Office of Statistics in 1989 because, well, I thought I have been working for an NGO before, and then we started kind of I had a small family, and I thought, well, I want to make a living and I want to earn some money, become independent as well as a woman, and to combine family life with the professional life. So I saw this ad in the newspaper, I applied and I got the job. I did the job for 3 years and then I thought, well, I'd like to gain more experience within the federal administration. The federal administration offers, especially for women, a very good infrastructure, I think. So I changed to the Federal Office of Public Health, working with HIV and AIDS. And then after 4 years, I thought, well, no, let's change and have a look at another office. So I switched to the Federal Office of Social Insurances, into the international affairs, attended conferences and gained experience in social security issues. And then it's interesting because then the network started to work. I was asked to work for a joint project, federal government and the cantons on drafting a national health policy. And this was a very interesting project, and I got really into politics, had a lot of interviews with the cantons and as well at the federal level. And once this project was finished, we managed to establish a dialogue between, kind of a vertical coordination between the federal government and the cantons. The dialogue still exists on a high level. And then I was asked to participate in a legislative process, meaning we were drafting a federal bill on disease prevention and health promotion. And we worked there for 6 years until the parliament decided by 2 votes not to adopt the bill. Well, this is something that happens if you work for the federal government. There are successful moments, very enlightening moments, but after 6 years as well, after writing reports and messages to the Federal Council and to the Parliament and investing night and day, finally 2 votes decided against the project, and so we failed. Maybe 5 years from now, we might be in another position. We see. Well, today I'm the head of a research project. You may be astonished, but we do research as well in the federal government, federal administration. Quite considerable research, but research only along our needs. So I'm heading a project called Swiss Addiction Monitoring. It is basically a data collection project. We do interviews. We interview 11,000 people yearly and ask them on their consumption behavior according to alcohol, tobacco, and illegal drugs. And so you see the link to Christian here next to me. Of course, we don't do these interviews by ourselves, but we ask 4 scientific institutes to do the research, to do the interviewing, to do the data processing, to do the data analysis, and as well the reporting. So what's my job then? Well, my job is I'm a project manager, basically. In other words, I'm negotiating the contract with the 4 institutes, We are talking here about a project that costs the federal government or the taxpayers like 4 million for 4 years, so 1 million per year. I'm responsible for the budget as well for the financial resources. I'm responsible for the quality of the data, for the content of the reports. I'm responsible as well for the knowledge transfer. Of course, I'm not alone. Although it's a one-woman show, more or less, at least for this project, I'm very much embedded in a team. It's a kind of a multidisciplinary project. We'll say that I'm responsible to various units in our Federal Office of Public Health, to those who are busy with alcohol, tobacco, or illegal drugs, or even internet addiction, and medical drug addiction. This is a very recent issue. So I have to guarantee or secure a good internal coordination, but as well a good relationship, a trust relationship to all the researchers outside. So how does the day looks like? Well, I get into the office. The first, I think everybody here does, working for the federal government. We check our mails, filter what is important, what is less urgent. Then I may prepare, look at my short-term task. I may prepare meetings. Meetings are very important, of course, because meetings have to be very organized, and you have to have clear discussion points and very structured meetings. So I may prepare a meeting. I may as well read a report. I may talk to my researcher, tell him, well, what was good, what could be better. I might have a coffee break with my team colleagues. I, of course, do a lot of networking. I go to lunch with, I meet people for lunch, either from the federal office or from the public administration, from previous works, or other people, colleagues. I do sport, of course, over lunchtime, because our federal office is very keen on offering facilities, sport facilities. I might prepare an article for a magazine. So it's a very comprehensive task I'm into, but these are rather short-term tasks. We'll say up to 3 months. The project I'm heading is one that has different kind of stages. It has a kind of short-term task, it has middle-term task and long-term task. Short-term task, I just mentioned a few. Middle-term task might be, for example, think about issues that merit a more detailed analysis of our data, or for example, we have a master plan of health research and inquire which are, for example, the public health research priorities within our own divisions, or how to best transfer our knowledge to other partners. Long-term tasks are more 4 years and further. What is the future of our monitoring system? We have two new strategies, a strategy for drug and a strategy for non-communicable diseases. How do we construct the new monitoring, or do we have the know-how, for example, to make an international call for proposals along WTO, along criteria of the World Trade Organization. Yeah. So to come to an end, I see I got another minute. What has been, to summarize, in retrospective, be open for new experiences. Don't be too strict on one subject only. Describe your skills quite carefully. I once got an application from a PhD student. He attached an article, very interesting, but nobody would have understood it in our office. So avoid attaching articles nobody understands. And for me, important as well to earn enough money to be financially independent, to combine family and life and professional life. And I think it's a professional career rather in stages than linear. So I took the freedom to do my PhD now than maybe 20 years ago. So there's always a chance, I think. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Wally, Achtermann, for these insights into Federal Bureau of Health. I'd like to hand over to Marie-Christine Fontana, econcept based in Zürich.
Thank you. Also welcome from my part. Thank you for the invitation and for the occasion to come back to Lausanne, where I actually did my PhD in political science, so it's nice to be here again. As Flavia said, I work in a private company now that does applied or mandated research. So it's not so different from research at university, but it is still quite different. I'll come back to that in a moment. We're mainly working for public authorities. So as she mentioned, that she works with private companies, so I'm on the other side, not concretely with her, but like with other public authorities, mainly on the federal level and on the cantonal level, sometimes even with communes, but it's rather rare. The company I'm working for is works on quite different topics, including energy or resources, economy of resources. I rather work on topics of research and education. So here comes back my background from university, and on social policy. Maybe just some examples of projects I work on right now. I'm finishing a study for the ISSH, for the Association of Social Sciences and Humanities, on the promotion of humanities in Switzerland. I'm finishing a study for Helvetas, which is an NGO. It's an evaluation of an exhibition they did on food, where it comes from, and they want to know whether people who go to this exhibition actually learn something about nutrition and food and north-south relation and all these things. I work on a study which was mentioned by Wally before, where we develop a concept for monitoring on poverty. So this is from the federal level. They want to develop a concept on monitoring of poverty. I work on a study with a colleague on the maturité professionnelle. I know exactly how you say it in English. Where actually the State Secretary of Education, Research and Innovation wants to promote this maturité professionnelle. So we do, une enquête, a study, a questionnaire on the cantons, all 26 cantons, and 150 organizations of the professions who actually offer the vocational training. So these are just some examples on projects I work on at the moment. And which also shows something I really like on this job is that you work on very different topics and with different actors, and you work together with the clients or the people who mandate these studies. How does my working day look like? It doesn't look much different than it did here at university. I mean, I'm writing proposals to get mandates where we have to think about the questioning of the project. We have to propose a research design. Then we're developing tools for data collection. So we're developing questionnaires, we're developing guides for interviews, schemes for document analysis, all these things. We do collect data, doing interviews, sending out questionnaires, analyzing documents, and then analyzing the data, writing reports. So this is very similar to what I did here at the university. There are some important differences though. One is that we don't really work much with theory. I mean, theory is something that's really, really unimportant. Maybe this project on poverty now is an exception because they are a little bit interested in the theoretical background, and what theories about poverty do exist, what's the impact on data, but in general, we're not working with theory. I work much more together with my colleagues than I did here at university. Even if I did I did my PhD in a project. We were 2 PhD students, but at the end, I mostly worked for myself. And now I really work together with my colleagues. We're developing questionnaires together, we're exchanging things, we're discussing things, and this is something really nice, I think. As I said, I work on several projects at the same time, while here it was mainly my PhD project. And we're a lot in contact with our clients and discuss together what they actually want, finding out what they actually want. Sometimes they know exactly what they want, and sometimes I kind of have an idea, but really have to develop together to find out what's what they want at the end. I think this is a really interesting part of that work, of this mandated research. And also the difference is that it's very much on the national level now. It's not, and there's something maybe I'm missing a little bit from the academic world, which is very international. Now I'm really on a national and Swiss-German based world somehow. And even if you work with the federal offices, in general, the Swiss Germans. So you kind of go back to a very German speaking, only Swiss, I mean, Bern is like the furthest they go for meetings, mainly in Zürich. Most of the interviews we do by telephone because it's less expensive than going to somewhere. So this is like a huge difference to university. But maybe just a few words of how I get there. During my PhD, I realized, rather at the end of my PhD, I realized that I kind of like doing the research, but it's not really my world. I mean, I did a PhD on Europeanization and policymaking in Switzerland with qualitative case studies on very different topics like electricity liberalization, competition law, and a second pillar pension reforms. It's not necessarily a good thing for afterwards changing outside of university because it's not really a topic. It's quite an academic topic, and I had an idea about different policy fields, but I wasn't an expert in any of these, and I had a not really a network in any of these, so this was a bit difficult. But at the end I realized I really like doing the field work, but I'm not really into this, I know, writing papers and the theory part, and yeah, somehow it wasn't my world. So I decided to quit university, to look for a job outside. It took me about 9 months to get a job. I mean, I applied for several jobs. I was interested in doing something like applied research. So that was either a HES, Haute École Spécialisée, or one of the private companies, or also like federal or cantonal administration. That's why I applied for jobs. And finally, also thanks to a colleague, I got this job I have now. It was not, there was no public, it was not really an ad somewhere in a newspaper, but they were spreading the information that they were looking for someone. And someone at the University of Zurich who does also applied research told me that they're looking for someone, so I sent my application. That's how I got this job here. But being, unlike Christian, I wasn't specialized in something, so it makes it much more difficult to find something outside afterwards than if you're already really in a topic, you know the people know you, you're really an expert in something. So that's for the moment, and I can maybe discuss this more afterwards.
Well, thank you very much to all of you for your brief interventions and for the nice and interesting biographies, which you will hopefully give a taste of what you can do after the PhD and how you get there. Now it's the time for questions, so the floor is open to you. Any questions you have to our guests, please pose them now. Ruth?
Thank you, Ruth Beckmann from Zurich University. Thanks for that very interesting talk. Jonathan talked a little bit about abilities and skills in the end in his presentation, and we're all still jealous that he got the great job. And I'd just be interested in Christian Schneider and in Marie-Christine Fontana's perspective. What abilities made it possible for you to get your job, and what do you think? What did you take from a PhD? What makes it easier to work now? So.
So acoustically, I'm not sure if I understood all of your questions, but as far as I understood, concerning what a PhD makes my job, in how a PhD makes my job easier in the end. Well, I think for me personally, as I said, as most of, or much of my time at least, not most, but much of my time is spent talking to people and extracting qualitative information from people for my own work. I guess having done that before was extremely important for two reasons. First, because my boss believed that I was able to do that. That was probably part of why he hired me in the end. But also because I've already did it and completely failed during my research. So I already had a kind of an understanding how to approach a different range of people in order to extract information from them in a way that it doesn't feel invasive. So that is certainly something like a very practical skill, I think, I brought from the research practice side of what I've been doing. For the more theoretical, epistemological part, I think having spent a lot of time already thinking about what data means, how we understand the world through data, through measurements, and where the limits are of data, measurement and indicators, all these things is very helpful in my job in order to make my assessments right. So in the end, I'm measured about on how good my assessments are or how helpful they are for decision makers. And knowing the limits of my data, knowing the limits of what I can know is extremely important to me. And again, here, I think I've already learned a lot. And when I compare how I'm working to some of my peers who have totally different career paths, some of them have been police officers, really starting from scratch and never done analysis work or never been trained for doing analysis work formally. I have much less confidence in what is there concerning data, and I think that makes me, in the end, it makes my judgment better. So I've learned a lot there. And the third point, you said theory is not so important anymore. I think theory is still very important for me, but it's not shown anywhere. So theory is in my head. I have my background. I have my my perspective on the world. And although I'm trying to challenge it all the time, I think it's extremely important for how I see the world, for how I collect data, which data I collect. So the whole thing which came in the kind of mindset or soft skills from the PhD was extremely important to me, I think. Does that answer the question? Very good.
Okay. Well, not so much to add. As Christian, I'm still doing research in a way. So what helps me is like everything about methodology. I mean, how to do a research design, how to collect data, how to analyze data. So this is very much the same I did before. So this I still use for my work now. The other thing that was useful is also being used to stand in front of public, to defend something, not only in front of students, but also on conferences like with more advanced people, because now also you discuss with the clients or the mandators what they want, you defend the result at the end, you have discussion about the results with them, sometimes they don't agree, so kind of you look for compromises, how do you write something in a report that you still can say, yeah, this is correct, and they are satisfied with the results. So it's also a process of negotiating. So for all these things, the PhD has been useful. But to be honest, most people in the company don't have a PhD. So they start after, when they studied social sciences, either political science or psychology. And probably at the beginning I was more advanced than my colleague who came directly from the master. But after 3 years, I mean, we're doing a lot of different projects, really get into different things in a very short time, compared to my PhD, where during 4 years or 5 years, I worked more or less in the same thing with the same 3-4 methods. I mean, you learn so much in a little time that after a few years, you're on a quite equal level. I mean, of course, I have my background, which no one will take away, but it's not a huge difference. So you don't really need a PhD to do that job I do. But it helps mainly at the beginning to get into it and to get an understanding of what's important and these things. Maybe just one word for how to get the job. Well, my boss afterwards told me that only with the PhD I wouldn't have got the job. It was also important that I did some other works on NGO works besides kind of knowing I was in a federal committee, and this for her was very important. So I also knew kind of the practical side because we're talking with people from politics. So this was very important as well. This is just another hint what's important to get a job outside, depending on the job, obviously.
Thank you very much for the answers to any other questions. Yes?
Thank you very much for your presentations. I got two short questions. One for Marie-Christine Fontana. It would be, did you consider working in EU-Switzerland negotiations with your PhD background? Did you consider working in the EU-Switzerland bilateral negotiations considering your PhD background? And another question for everybody. Did any of you consider at some point a diplomatic career or working in foreign affairs in general? Thank you.
Okay. I was considering a diplomatic career, maybe I started with that question, during my studies, but before starting the PhD I decided that's not what I'm gonna do. Of course it would have been interesting to get a job somewhere with the EU. I was applying, but finally what I was doing was looking for jobs that either have some link to research, as I said, private research company or HES, or that has in the public administration something to do with research assistant, or so this was important to me to still do some kind of research. I was applying for one job that was at the Federal Office of Public Health. There was some linked with the EU. But then I first got that job offer, so I decided for that one. I don't even know if I got the other job. But this would have been interesting, for sure. But it was not like the main criteria for me to get for the job. Maybe just one final word also, because I was rather looking for something either in Zurich or in the region, also for personal reasons, kind of having a certain age and thinking about family. Something that I have to go to Brussels all the time wouldn't be ideal necessarily. Maybe also one reason to quit academia, where you have to be flexible and go abroad as well.
Thank you. Who wants to go next on the question regarding the diplomatic service? Christian.
I've considered it too during my studies before I started my PhD. Was very helpful that I did an internship in a general consulate, Swiss general consulate. Learned to know some of the diplomats, could see who my peers would be, what they would be doing, and decided that this is nothing for me. Still happy today. I'm still working a lot with the Foreign Office. Still happy that I didn't choose this career path. It's something I couldn't imagine. So.
About the diplomatic career, what I would fear, but I don't know, is that you probably cannot choose where you're going to, and you probably end up in a country you never wanted to end up, and you will never end up in the countries you wanted to end up. So that was what I was fearing, but I don't know whether that's really correct.
Perhaps just from a practical experience, and the Federal Office of Public Health, of course, has a quite large international department. What I know from my young colleagues is that if you apply there, it's useful to have kind of a functional master or whatever in international affairs. So political science in general would probably be not sufficient, or you would have made your PhD on an international issue. So there the requirements are quite high.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Sorry. Just from my point of view, there's also a general point here. Knowing what you don't want is probably as important as knowing what you want if you want to change your career path from a PhD to something outside academia. So also gathering experience early on is important, not only for the networking, but also to understand what the opportunities are and which of the opportunities are simply not interesting for you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience? It doesn't seem to be the case, so just a few words to conclude. We learned about exciting job profiles. Thank you very much for coming and showing us a bit of your daily work, of what you're doing, of how you came to be there. And I think in this context we see a few keywords that came up again and again. So first of all, communication, so networking really among peers, among any kind of people you meet during your PhD, to consider them and remind yourself sometimes just with a brief email, maybe also Christmas greetings, that helps. So the third space, like Roger, thinking about opportunities, if you want to go out but not completely. And the hidden labor market, I think this is crucial, to get in touch with people where you want to end up in some ways, to think early in your PhD about opportunities, to go for specific jobs and maybe try to come in and find these circles early on. We learned that chance plays a big role, but you have the chance to influence chance. So, and I think this is also the case here. Christian has to leave early, but we will be here some moments. If you want to come up to us and ask some questions, you have the chance to make happenstance happen now. So, and finally, I think also be aware of what you actually learn during a PhD, so in terms of soft skills, of communication, of organization, of conference, and etc. And be really also aware of these skills and be able to sell them to your future employer. So, I'd like to thank again our guests. Very much for coming. I thank the organizers here for wonderful technical support, and I thank you for coming to follow our discussions. We will be here another few minutes. Thank you very much.